When chests were ripped open, hearts torn asunder and offered to the sun, beseeching the God for blessings, they said it was the way of things. When contaminated blankets were given as gifts, and 2/3 of a population was wiped out by disease, when the people of the land were systematically forced from their homes, subjected to genocide and ethnic cleansing for the sake of an infantile nation, when they were relegated to dry, unworkable lands, forced to give up their language and wear the bloodstained persona of the conqueror, they said it was the way of things. When people were torn from their families, their homelands, and survived the long and torturous Middle Passage only to be held in slavery. When children were torn from their mothers and young girls and boys were forced to serve the master's pleasure, they said it was the way of things. And when inhumane laws were passed, restricting people from basic rights because of the color of their skin or their religion, when those same people were raped and lynched, gassed, burned alive, and burned out of their homes for the amusement of the perpetrators, they said it was the way of things. When racial hatred was considered a thing to be proud of, when it was thought an abomination to love one of a different race, when women were not allowed to choose their husbands or the destiny of their own bodies, were not allowed education or the right to vote, it was said to be the way of things. When migrant farm workers died of exposure and exhaustion because they had no labor protections, when their children went without education because they were working the fields with their parents, when people do not receive equal pay for equal work because of their gender, race, orientation, or ethnicity, when gays, lesbians, and transgender people are fired because of their identity, when they are lynched, burned alive, or raped and beaten to death because of who they are, when their rights are denied, just like old Jim Crow, some call it the way of things. When children are bullied and beaten without intervention and come to school carrying guns, seeking retribution, we shake our heads and throw up our hands in confusion and call it the way of things. When some live in ornate luxury and hoard property and possessions while walking past people sleeping on the street, when those who can afford health care willfully want to prevent others from having it, when the haves purposely deny the have-nots, when religions condemn other spiritual traditions, claiming their way is the only way, they call it the way of things. When those trying to improve the lives of all, to feed the hungry, to help the sick, to save the planet, are hated by the status quo, when love is considered weak and hatred strong, when war is preferred over peace, suffering over joy, injustice over change, ignorance over enlightenment, and death over life, it is time to change the way of things.